On today's episode, I'll reveal the top 5 of my Blackhawks prospects list.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, just a reminder to please go and hit that like button. Jump in the comment section down below as well. Mailbag Monday, of course, is right around the corner. I'll make sure to bookmark those questions and answer them on Monday's episode. Subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well if you haven't done so already. So close to reaching my goal of 2,000 subscribers. I'm just 30 subscribers away, Blackhawks fans. So please, even if you're someone who regularly listens through an audio platform, jump on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button for me. 100% free, won't cost you anything, and really does help me out tremendously. Last but certainly not least, do got to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off to the sporting events, concerts, or theater events near you. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Happy Friday. Hope everyone's Friday is off to a lovely start. I know it was still a little bit brisk here early on in the morning, but does look like there are some better temperatures creeping up towards us here over the next week or so. Up into the 40s, actually, I believe, next Monday. So better days ahead. Hope everyone's bundling up here through these last few days of this cold stretch. But to kick off today's episode, Blackhawks fans, it's time to reveal the top 5 of my Chicago Blackhawks 2024-2025 midseason prospect rankings. And a reminder, first, if you haven't checked out Parts 1 and Parts 2, where I dive through numbers 6 through 20. Make sure you go and do that. It only makes sense to go through things in order. I also shout out a couple of honorable mentions in Part 1 as well. Go and check out who came in at numbers 6 through 20 before you dive into the top 5 here today. And I also want to let you all know as well, I do always time code everything down in the description. I doubt there are any people who tuned into today's episode specifically to hear about Ethan Del Mastro being recalled or AJ Spellacy inking his entry-level contract. Those are the topics I'll be talking about in segments 2 and 3. If you want to skip my top 5 prospect rankings, again, I doubt there are many people who do, but you can always do that on every episode. Everything is always time-coded down in the description every single day. But kicking things off, in number 5 in my Chicago Blackhawks mid-season prospects rankings is Roman Kanserov, 2023 second-round pick for the Blackhawks, 44th overall selection. He's a 5'9", 180-pound winger who just turned 20 back in September. Been playing in the KHL with Metallurg these last couple of years. As a 19-year-old, he tallied 15 points, 8 goals, and 7 assists in 53 regular season games, but really flipped the switch in the KHL postseason to help Metallurg win the Gagarin Cup, tallying 13 points, 4 goals, and 9 assists in only 23 games, so nearly equaling the production that he put up in the regular season in less than half the amount of games. And since that nice stretch for him in the postseason, Kanserov has really carried over the momentum here as a 20-year-old. He's now up to 24 points, 12 goals, and 12 assists through his opening 27 games on the season. He's currently the top U21 point producer in the entire KHL, and the way he's been going about it and the skill set that he possesses, I really do believe is translatable to the next level. He plays with a lot of speed. I think he has a good dynamic type of offensive ability in terms of playmaking and goal scoring. Some of the goals he scored this year has really impressed me. The power play strikes, the one-timer that he possesses, and the power that he can get on that bad boy for only being 5'9". He's got a really good, well-rounded offensive makeup. He can also play through transition with that really solid foot speed that he has. And as I mentioned, has good vision on the power play as well, in addition to that one-timer in the shot that he possesses. As far as the weaknesses for Roman Kanserov, first and foremost, it's the size, being only 5'9", 5'10", less than 200 pounds is going to be a battle for him up against grown men at the NHL level. There are also some wonders about his ability away from the puck and his defensive prowess, but he does play with a pretty high motor and does use his speed and his acceleration to make an impact on the defensive side of things. It's just about doing it a little bit more consistently. But I really do think Roman Kanserov projects as a future top 6 piece here for the Blackhawks. He does have one more year on his contract over in the KHL, and then it seems pretty likely that he'll come over to North America following the 2025-2026 season. I think Kanserov probably projects more as a second liner than he does as a top liner, but as I referenced, I think his game fits the NHL well because of the pace that he plays at and his well-rounded game. And I love that he can also be a shooter and a playmaker on the man advantage. So super excited to see how Roman Kanserov is going to develop over the next year and a half before he hopefully comes over to North America. Next at number 4, we got Sasha Boisvert, 2024 first-round pick for the Blackhawks, 18th overall, 6'2", 185-pound center, turns 19 in March, still only 18 years old, so tons of runway for Sasha Boisvert. Had 68 points, 36 goals, 32 assists in 61 USHL games for the Waterloo Blackhawks before getting drafted 18th overall. And so far, as a freshman for North Dakota, he has been outstanding. One of the best freshmen in the entire country, tallying 18 points, 9 goals, and 9 assists through his opening 23 games. He's currently North Dakota's leading scorer as a freshman. They're a top 25 team in the country. Sasha Boisvert, I know, wasn't maybe the most popular pick for the Blackhawks at number 18. Wasn't even the selection that I would have gone with, as I'm sure some of you remember from over the summer, but it wasn't about his skill set. I did like Sasha Boisvert's game, and I had him ranked as the 22nd best prospect in the draft class, so it wasn't like it was a huge reach for the Blackhawks. I just thought his upside was a little bit capped because of the lack of foot speed, and I wasn't 100% sold that he was going to be a center iceman, but he is shutting down some of those criticisms in a hurry here as a freshman for North Dakota. He has been sensational, and I do still have some concerns about the foot speed and capping his playmaking upside, but he has so many good tools already as an 18-year-old, and again, he's going to continue to develop, whether he's at North Dakota, really good program there, or how many years it's going to be until he makes the jump. He's going to continue to develop nicely, I believe, because he's been graded as one of the highest motors from the 2024 draft class. Super hard worker, guy who works hard in the gym, and you can see it out there on the ice with the way that he plays the game. He's tenacious, really strong on both ends of the ice, has some good size to him as well at 6'2", plays with a little bit of an edge, but the best asset, the best skill that Sasha Boisvert possesses is undoubtedly the shot. This kid can absolutely rifle the biscuit, and he has the shot to be a special goal scorer, I think, on the man advantage. And again, only 18 years old, so I think that's going to continue to get better and better. The only real weaknesses for Sasha Boisvert is the lack of high-level skating ability, and that kind of gives you some concerns about his playmaking. And you do wonder with that lack of speed if he's ever going to be a center at the next level, but I do think because of all the good qualities that he possesses and because he makes a clear effort on the defensive side of things, I do think he ultimately winds up being a center iceman at the next level. But as far as what I think he projects as, it's either a top 6 winger or the second/third line center of the future for the Chicago Blackhawks. As I mentioned, still a ton of runway for Sasha Boisvert, and that's why I have him actually over Roman Kanserov, because he's the younger of the two players here, and I think he just has more runway than Roman does. So I have Sasha Boisvert coming in at number 4. Maybe, he could make the leap to the pro level after his freshman campaign, but I think one more year of college hockey is the most likely option for him. And it's going to be fun watching him continue to develop for North Dakota over these next couple of years. Got a huge hair in my eye. Coming in at number 3, Blackhawks fans, is Sam Rinzel, 2022 first-round pick, 25th overall selection. The Blackhawks traded with the Toronto Maple Leafs to get back into the first round. They also got Peter Mrazek for free, basically, as part of that deal. And Rinzel is a 6'4", 185-pound right-handed defenseman, still only 20 years old, not going to turn 21 until in the summer in June. And he also played in the USHL like Sasha Boisvert for the Waterloo Blackhawks before making the leap to college hockey and joining Minnesota. Had a pretty solid freshman campaign with 28 points in 39 games, 2 goals and 26 assists. Also picked up 1 assist in 7 games to help the United States win gold at the 2024 World Juniors. But so far as a sophomore, Rinzel has absolutely exploded. He's turned into one of the best defensemen in all of college hockey and even has got himself nominated for the Hobey Baker Award, which, by the way, Sasha Boisvert is nominated for the Hobey Baker as well. Sam Rinzel, I think, is the only Blackhawks prospect who has an actual chance at winning that award, though, because he has been excellent. So far through 26 games, Rinzel's tallied 24 points with 9 goals. 9 goals and 15 assists. Second most goals from any defenseman in college hockey so far this year. It's been a big-time boom out of Sam Rinzel. As far as his strengths, the size that he possesses as a right-handed defenseman, I mean, that doesn't grow on trees. It's what every NHL club is always looking for. Sam Rinzel's got it. 6'4" as a right-handed defenseman. Also skates really well. Moves like a deer out there. I don't think it's quite Kevin Korchinski level skating ability, but Sam Rinzel has some pretty effortless strides out there on the ice. He also has a developing shot, which has certainly been noticeable this year with the 9 goals that he scored. I do think he also has both power play and penalty kill upside at the next level, but I feel like he's kind of a similar prospect to Wyatt Kaiser, where he doesn't necessarily excel in just one area, even though he probably considers himself to be more of a defensive-minded defenseman. I do think Rinzel is always going to be known for his offensive upside, though, more than his, stay-at-home presence. But I do think he could wind up turning into, a second penalty kill defenseman type of guy. Just a well-rounded nature, well-rounded skill set that Sam Rinzel possesses. So I think he projects as a future top 4 defenseman, but with true top pairing upside. That's the difference with Sam Rinzel. There is still so much runway for this kid to grow, still only in his second year of college hockey, very raw, and it's going to be interesting to see how he winds up faring against grown men and what the Blackhawks ultimately wind up doing with him. I have a feeling he's probably going to make the leap to the pro level after the conclusion of his sophomore year, but we'll see. There is the potential for Rinzel to go back and absolutely dominate college hockey. I think the Blackhawks would probably want them under their guide at the AHL level with Rockford, but we'll see what winds up happening with Sam Rinzel. Still lots of runway, though. Undeniable upside being 6'4" as a right-handed defenseman. Great playmaking ability, a growing shot, and strong skating. I'm really stoked to see what's coming next for Sam Rinzel. At number 2, Blackhawks fans, is Artem Levshinov, 2024 second overall pick, 6'2", 210 right-handed defenseman out of Belarus, turned 19 back in October. Had a really fast transition after coming over from Belarus. He joined on with the Green Bay Gamblers of the USHL, then immediately made the jump to college hockey with Michigan State and had a tremendous freshman season that led to him being the first defenseman off the board and the second player taken in the 2024 draft with 34 points, 9 goals, and 26 assists in 38 games. He was a man amongst boys out there to help Michigan State win the Big Ten regular season title. And then, of course, he made the leap to pro hockey after being drafted by the Blackhawks, has spent all season developing down at the AHL level with Rockford, tallying 11 points, 2 goals, and 9 assists in his opening 34 games. And I think when people see that Levshinov only has 11 points in 34 games, they probably think, he's trending towards bust territory or he was the wrong selection for the Blackhawks. And listen, I was the first person to say I think the Blackhawks should have taken Ivan Demidov. I was on the Ivan Demidov train as soon as I knew they had the second overall pick. But I did say Artem Levshinov, when breaking down his draft profile, deserved to be the top defenseman off the board. And I don't think really anything that's happened down in Rockford through these first 34 games should sway me away from that type of feeling or discourage me about Artem Levshinov's future. Because as I've mentioned many times on the show, you got to take everything what's going on down in Rockford right now with a little bit of a grain of salt, because Mark Eaton's coaching, there's been a lot of players called up, especially on the back end. The goaltending position, we've seen guys go up and down. Drew Comesso and Arvid Soderblom, we thought were going to be the tandem there this year, right? There's a lot of funny things going on down in Rockford, and ultimately with Artem Levshinov, he was always going to be a little bit of a project type of selection. because he is so raw and because he is only 2 years removed from coming over from Belarus and he's had all these quick turnarounds, right? He is going to be a little bit of a project, but I think ruling him a bust or the wrong selection based on 34 games down in Rockford is a foolish way to go about it. We won't know what Artem Levshinov is, truthfully, for a couple of years, and we probably won't know whether the Blackhawks made the right decision or not till 4 or 5 years down the road. So I would not let those numbers make you feel any type of way about Artem Levshinov. We're still looking at him in terms of the long haul. But as far as his strengths, definitely the size that stands out immediately, 6'2", already 210 pounds as a 19-year-old, plays like a grown man out there, not overtly physical, but can knock you down and play hard-nosed in front of the net. Does have skating upside as well, which I think is going to be a strength of his at the next level. He can carry the mail through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone, and he's not scared to do it. Now, he does have to clean up some of his decisions and make better heads-up plays, but you like the tools that Artem Levshinov possesses. Good playmaking ability, good shot, even though he only has 2 goals so far at the AHL level. We saw it in college hockey with Michigan State, having 9 goals in 38 games there as a freshman. Got good power on his shot as well. He's just a very well-rounded defenseman. The only real weaknesses I would say about Artem Levshinov is how high necessarily is the upside, right? Like, what is the true number one strength of his game? Because he doesn't have that one tool that absolutely wows you. He just has kind of all of them together. And again, there isn't that clear-cut weakness. But I still don't know if he's necessarily going to be like a point-per-game offensive defenseman or if he's going to be more of a defensive stalwart. Again, he's just so young and so raw, we don't really know. But undoubtedly, Artem Levshinov is a big right-handed defenseman, which is always attractive. He has all the tools that you'd like to see as a 19-year-old. So I do think Levshinov projects as a top 4 defenseman for the Blackhawks. I just don't know necessarily if it's going to be a top pairing guy, a second pairing, stay at home type of defenseman. I don't really know what he's going to be, but there's still a lot of upside. There's still a lot of runway. Not as much upside as Sam Rinzel, I will say. If I'm choosing between who has the higher ceiling, I'm going to go with Sam Rinzel because of his skating ability. But what I will say, Blackhawks fans, is Artem Levshinov is only 19 years old. Sam Rinzel is going to turn 21 in June. And the type of year that Sam Rinzel is having right now as a sophomore with Minnesota, Artem Levshinov did that as a freshman, basically like not even a year removed out of Belarus, and he didn't even have a training camp going into that year with the Spartans, and he was 18 years old as a freshman. So that's why I have Artem Levshinov ahead of Sam Rinzel, because he's the younger of the 2 players. Yes, Rinzel has the higher upside, but Artem Levshinov, I do think, has the higher floor and is going to be an NHL defenseman undoubtedly. Sam Rinzel is a little bit of a risk because you're not sure how he's going to play against grown men as a little bit of an undersized 6'4" defenseman. Artem Levshinov is a thick 6'2" grown man, and I think that's going to help him fare well in the transition against grown men. That's why I have him coming in at number 2. Coming in at number 1 now, Blackhawks fans, 2022 first-round pick, Frank Nazar. 13th overall selection that year, 5'10", 190-pound forward. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be a center or a wing for the Blackhawks in the future, but as I've referenced a couple of times on the show recently, the Blackhawks don't need Sam Rinzel. They don't need Frank Nazar to be a center iceman. They don't need Frank Nazar to be a wing. They need Frank Nazar to be an impact player, regardless of what position that occurs at. And I do think Frank Nazar certainly has the goods to be that type of impact player. Just turned 21 years old a couple of weeks ago, back on January 14th. Of course, he spent 2 years with Michigan, sadly missed most of his freshman campaign due to injury, but responded in a big way as a sophomore, tallying 41 points, 17 goals in 24 games, and 17 goals, 24 assists in 41 games, to help lead Michigan to the Frozen Four. Also tallied 8 points, all assists in 7 games with the United States to help them win the gold medal at the World Juniors. Joined the Blackhawks at the end of last year, scored his first NHL goal actually in his debut, and then joined on with the Rockford IceHogs at the start of this season. Absolutely dominated that level. 24 points, 11 goals, 13 assists in his opening 21 AHL games. That earned him his first call-up of the year, and he's been thriving as of late, Blackhawks fans, particularly on the top line with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi. They really seem to be clicking, and I'm excited where things are going to go for them these next couple of weeks. But as far as the strengths for Frank Nazar, we've seen it over the last handful of games. The motor, the speed, the two-way play, the forecheck. Even though he's 5'10", the guy never stops. He has no quit in him, and he's an absolute dog. He'll go and strip the puck away from you, and he plays with a little bit of an edge out there as well. And then let's get to the offensive skill set. Very dynamic. I think he's always going to be more of a playmaker at the next level, but I am encouraged by Frank Nazar's shot, and the amount of chances he's been getting here as of late. I know he hasn't been getting the finished product, but it just reminds me, I know he doesn't have the Connor Bedard level shot, but I feel like the dam is going to break in terms of the goal scoring sooner rather than later for Frank Nazar. He has a developing shot, 11 goals in his opening 21 AHL games with the Rockford IceHogs. I was hoping that was going to transfer over a little bit sooner here in his current NHL stint, but I am, like I said, still encouraged about where his shot is heading. I also think Frank Nazar is just one of those guys who's going to have his fingerprints all over the success the Blackhawks are going to have in the future, because he's going to play on the penalty kill. He's going to play on the power play. He can play the center ice position. He can play the wing. He can move him up and down the lineup. He can play a skill game. He can play a little bit of a grit game. He has such a well-rounded skill set. As far as the weaknesses, definitely the size. You have some concerns about whether or not he can be rugged enough to play, against a top team's top line in the most meaningful points of the game. There are some concerns about that. But again, I think we have other prospects in the system, and we can also bring in other players to who that is their forte. That's not necessarily Frank's forte, but he can offer us that when we do need that out of him. So as far as what I think Frank Nazar projects at, I've thought the world of Frank Nazar since they drafted him 13th overall. It's why I gave him the nickname Frank the Tank. I know there are some longtime listeners and viewers of this show who are just as excited as I am to see Frank Nazar blossoming onto the NHL scene. And if you've been watching the Blackhawks as of late, again, it just feels like there is a 3-point game type of explosion coming out of Frank Nazar with the amount of chances that he gets, just the amount of little plays that he makes to get his team the puck back or force a turnover or keep a play alive in the offensive zone. Like, he just does all the little things well. I love everything about Frank Nazar, and I truly think he projects as a future top 6 piece here in Chicago, whether that's going to be as a top line winger or as a second line center. That's to be determined. But again, regardless of the position, Blackhawks just need Frank Nazar to be a damn good hockey player, and I really think he possesses all the traits Blackhawks fans to do that for a long, long time here in Chicago. All right, there are my top 5 prospects in the Chicago Blackhawks organization as we've reached the midway point of the 2024-2025 campaign. Go and let me know down in the comment section what you think of my midseason top 20 Blackhawks prospect rankings. If I got someone too high, too low, or if I'm spot on, give me your 2 cents down below in the comment section. Coming up in just a moment, though, Blackhawks fans, I'll turn the chapter over and talk about Ethan Del Mastro receiving his second ever NHL call-up. But first, I do got to talk to you all real quick about Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of my favorite memories from last year was attending a concert. And the energy and the excitement were absolutely unforgettable. And now, Game Time has made it even easier for you to get tickets to your favorite live events, not just hockey games, with their new feature called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I personally have used Game Time since I was back in high school, still use it to this very day, whether I'm going down to the United Center to watch the Blackhawks, whether it's summertime and I'm going to Wrigley to watch the Cubbies, or even if I'm in another city traveling and want to go see a comedy event with one of my buddies or want to go and check out a concert, I always make sure to check out Game Time first because it's the fastest, cheapest, and easiest way for you to purchase your tickets. Plus, I love how they provide views from every seat in the house so you know exactly what to expect before you arrive and before you make your purchase. I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app And when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps after creating an account to get $20 off with your first purchase. Yes, you heard me right. You can get $20 off to go and see Connor Bedard at the United Center before the season closes. All you got to do, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. What time is it? It's game time. Segment 2, handful of roster moves were made by the Blackhawks on Thursday afternoon, with the most notable one being 22-year-old defenseman, my boy Ethan Del Mastro, who was, of course, also recently a part of my Chicago Blackhawks 2024-2025 midseason prospects list, earning his first NHL call-up of the season and second of his young career. Del Mastro, of course, as I just recently broke down on the podcast, had a splendid first pro season with the Rockford IceHogs, being named an AHL All-Star and tallying 37 points, 7 goals, and 30 assists in 69 games worth of action. That type of play earned him an NHL call-up as a reward towards the end of last year. Del Mastro got to make his NHL debut and played in one more game as well. Been a little bit of a slow offensive year out of EDM, as he's only tallied 8 points through the opening 38 games this season, all of them being assists. Having no goals is definitely disappointing after tallying 7 last year, and seeing a nice uptick in that department in the last couple of years that he played junior hockey. But again, everything is a little bit weird down in Rockford at this point in time, and Anders Sorensen in the front office actually, Sorensen mentioned during a recent media session yesterday that he liked what he saw out of Ethan Del Mastro on the defensive side of things recently down in Rockford. So did the organization. And that's why, again, as a little bit of a reward, they wanted to call him up to the Rockford IceHogs. So definitely happy to see Ethan Del Mastro back on the scene. I'm sure, as some of you remember, I actually just broke it down a couple of days ago, and looking back at the bold predictions I dished out before the start of the year, one of those bold predictions was Ethan Del Mastro makes the NHL club and sticks around. Well, that's actually happened to Nolan Allen, but excited to see Ethan Del Mastro back up with the Blackhawks for the first time this year. Unfortunately, the corresponding move with EDM going up, sending Wyatt Kaiser back down to the Rockford IceHogs. And this is something that I knew was coming. I've mentioned it on the show the last couple of weeks with how they've been handling him and the reluctancy to actually solve the TJ Brody issue. Doesn't seem like, based on this move, Blackhawks fans, the Blackhawks have recognized that they have a TJ Brody issue. Anders Sorensen recently had a long chat with Brody. Brody actually talked to the media and recognized that his play needs to be better. He's called this first year with the Blackhawks a roller coaster himself. Yeah, imagine how us fans feel, TJ Brody. But clearly, I don't think the Blackhawks have any desire to put TJ Brody on waivers for the point of sending him to the Rockford IceHogs. It seems like, I'd assume he's going to be healthy scratch tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That seems like the only type of solution they're interested in right now. Yeah, maybe they can go and try and trade TJ Brody, but I don't think anyone's going to pick up that contract another 2 years at $3.75 million. So it continues to be a shame that bringing in both Martinez and Brody was just a bad decision by Kyle Davidson, and also TJ Brody getting a 2-year deal is just a disaster for the development of some of these youngsters on the Blackhawks blue line. Really interested to see how that's going to work with Ethan Del Mastro now on the scene. I'd imagine TJ Brody, like I said, is scratched here tonight. EDM gets back into the lineup. No official word as of this point, though. I'm recording this at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, so prior to the Blackhawks morning skate. But with 7 defensemen on the roster, even though it's now Ethan Del Mastro and Wyatt Kaiser, you got to wonder what's going to happen whenever Connor Murphy does get healthy, and we've been seeing him skating ahead of Blackhawks practice. I anticipate Ethan Del Mastro getting called up means Connor Murphy isn't like super close or anything, but I know he is starting to trend in the right direction, and you have to wonder when Connor Murphy does return. I mean, the easy move would just be to send Ethan Del Mastro back, but let's say Ethan Del Mastro fares well and performs like Louis Crevier does. Then what do? Do you send EDM back despite him playing well? Do you send Louis, you don't want to send Louis back, I don't think, because he's been thriving on a pairing with Alex Vlasic. Ugh, just feels like, again, one too many veteran defensemen for my liking right here, right now. I'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but Alec Martinez recently didn't seem like he was too interested in being traded, which won't do the Blackhawks any favors here at the trade deadline. I don't know. I'll talk about that more on tomorrow's episode, though, Blackhawks fans. Be on the lookout for that. But there are my thoughts on the moving pieces on the Blackhawks blue line on Thursday. Coming up in just a moment before I wrap up today's episode, still got to talk about AJ Spellacy signing his entry-level contract. Real quick, though, do got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs more exciting because right now, new customers can start the postseason strong with $300 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to now pick up a W, and the app is super easy to navigate with a ton of variety of bets to help keep the game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid out instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team to hopefully make it to the Super Bowl, if you're a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Philadelphia Eagles, or Washington Commanders, or if you're a fan of a team that's already been knocked out, sadly, and just are looking for some extra excitement as the postseason comes to an end, either way, FanDuel has got you covered. And to go and take advantage of their amazing offer, go and visit FanDuel.com right now in order to join today. Again, it's FanDuel.com for your chance to win $300 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So go and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just want to say thank you to everyone out there for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your Friday. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast so that you can become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. And you can find the link to Locked On Fantasy Hockey right now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, another transaction made by the Chicago Blackhawks on Thursday afternoon was the announcement that 2024 third-round pick, the 72nd overall selection in this past year's draft, AJ Spellacy, has officially inked a 3-year entry-level contract with the Blackhawks, carrying a $975,000 AAV. And of course, Spellacy was phenomenal in his first pro training camp back in the fall with the Blackhawks. Really looked the part in the preseason for a kid who was, only 18 years old and coming right out of the OHL. He looked like he could have possibly made the Blackhawks team should they have needed him to. And that's probably the big thing to mention. The Blackhawks, with all their prospects, they don't need them to survive. They need them to go and thrive. So ultimately, Spellacy did go back to the Windsor Spitfires of the Ontario Hockey League, where he's had a really strong season as they're one of the top teams in the Ontario Hockey League. He's got 25 points, 11 goals, 14 assists, and 40 games of action. He's a big 6'4", 205-pound forward for being only 18 years old. And the Blackhawks, by giving him this entry-level contract, clearly envision him as part of their future, which I think is, going to give Spellacy a little bit of a confidence boost, getting this done so early on in his junior career. And again, this is a kid who committed full-time to hockey 2.5 years ago. He was a monster linebacker in the state of Ohio, where they absolutely bleed football. But this kid's athleticism was too good for him to pass up on the ice. So he ultimately elected to choose hockey, and seems like it's been a pretty darn good decision. Now inking his entry-level contract, despite being a third-round pick just a year ago. I do want to be sure to mention, I know a lot of people were thinking that with Spellacy signing this ELC, could he possibly be making the jump to the pro scene next year? And I do think it could be in the cards, but with Spellacy not turning 19 years old until February next month, that means he won't turn 20 until February of 2026. That means he is not eligible to play in the AHL next year under the current rule set. And there are some rumors that maybe it gets lifted, like the OHL NCAA ban that we've seen recently that's led to Jack Bushman playing for the Kitchener Rangers before going to Boston University in the fall. There are some rumors that maybe that could get lifted, but should the rule stand as it is now, AJ Spellacy will not be eligible to play in the AHL next year, meaning it's only NHL or OHL for him. And while he has the size and the physicality and the skating ability to potentially survive at the NHL level as a 19-year-old next year. I don't think that's what the Blackhawks want from him. And it's not like they need AJ Spellacy to be a difference maker next year to get them over the hump. No, they want what's best for his development. And I think that'll be going back to the Windsor Spitfires for a fourth year, probably being around a point per game player for them, and also potentially having the crack to play for the United States at the 2026 World Juniors. I think doing this right here, right now, gives Spellacy a good confidence boost going into next year to give him that feeling that, hey, this team wants me as part of their future. They clearly like what I've been doing. Let's just go and keep up with the same type of work ethic. Keep doing what's been going well for me here as of late and go and have a really strong final campaign in the OHL. Go help the United States win a third consecutive gold medal at Christmas time next year, and then we'll see Spellacy make the leap to the pro scene. I think that's the most likely option for him. Again, it's not out of the cards that he makes the jump to the NHL scene. We'll see how he looks during training camp next fall. But clearly, again, the Blackhawks see AJ Spellacy as part of their future. That's why they went and got this out of the way early on, even though he's still only 18 years old and won't be AHL eligible next season. But there are my thoughts on AJ Spellacy inking his entry-level deal. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way you can get the latest episode as soon as it's uploaded each and every day. So until the next episode, everyone, enjoy your weekends. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.